Thank you for your interest in education grant opportunities for Mansfield City Schools. My name is Sierra Marth. I am a Community Investment Officer with Richland County Foundation, and I will be guiding you through the information about education grant opportunities. Before we dive in, I'd like to review the history of Richland County Foundation for those who might not be familiar. We were established in 1945 by a group of community leaders who recognized the impact that a community foundation could have in Richland County. Our mission is to improve and enhance the quality of life in Richland County through strategic philanthropy and community leadership. So what does that mean? Who are we? Well, we're a staff of 6 governed by a board of trustees made up of community leaders. What do? We're a community catalyst. We identify and support community needs and connect donors to potential requests. We're also a bridge builder. We connect like programs and organizations to encourage collaboration and reduce duplication. And of course, we're a grant maker. Although we have different fund types and various cycles, today's focus will be on the education grant opportunities offered to educators in Richland County. Mansfield City School teachers have 4 unique funding opportunities through the Richland County Foundation: the Teacher Assistance Program, or TAP grants, Harry and Lois McCullough Fund grants, the Fran and Warren Rupp Fund grants, and the Fine Arts Fund grants. Let's start with TAP grants. Started in 1996 to help teachers with out-of-pocket expenses for their classrooms, the key purpose of TAP grants is to provide grants for area teachers to develop creative and interesting new programs, projects, or events in K-12 classrooms. Grants are awarded to individual classroom teachers or small teams of classroom teachers intended to foster educational innovation by funding creative ideas that are not supported by regular school budgets. The maximum grant amount is $1,500 and the deadline to apply is June 25th. The application can be accessed at our website, richlandcountyfoundation.org, and can be found under the Grant Forms menu. You should also find the application link included in this email. If you are awarded a grant, you will be required to submit a final report by June 1st of the next year. Final reports should include measurable outcomes demonstrating the effectiveness of the program. Once you have applied for a TAP grant, Richland County Foundation staff will review the application and reach out if there are any questions or further clarification is needed before presenting the applications to the committee. If your application is approved, you will be notified by email with approval and possible conditions. Additionally, your superintendent will be sent a grant contract to sign and return to Richland County Foundation. Once we have received the signed contract, we will issue the grant to the school. You should coordinate with your principal or treasurer to know how your school handles issuing the grant for your use. Be sure to keep track of your grant number. I recommend printing out a copy of your application for your records in addition to your school's records. You should also keep track of the conditions of the grant should there be any specific information issued by the awarding committee, and you should note the awarded amount. All of that information will be asked of you when you submit your final report. You should also track your expenses and the measurable data you intend to use as your benchmark. If for some reason you are unable to implement the program during the school year, you can request an extension for the following year. Otherwise, the grant fund should be returned to Richland County Foundation. Examples of previously awarded grant programs include Tower Gardens, Classroom Libraries, DNA Science Kits, Raz Kids Learning Software, and many others. There are some things that the TAP Grant Committee will not approve for funding. First, physical technology items are not approved for funding. This includes printers, cameras, Chromebooks, and similar technology items. Another example of a non-approved item or request are fidget items. Additionally, furniture is not an approved item. Furniture can include tables, chairs, bookshelves, etc. And lastly, rewards for classroom programs are not typically approved through the TAP grant program. This includes awards or rewards for PBIS programs. If you have any questions about programs that may or may not be approved for TAP grant funding, don't hesitate to reach out to myself or another RCF staff member. The McCullough Fund grants are another grant opportunity available to Richland County educators. McCullough grants will be available for the purpose of promoting writing, literature appreciation, music, and Ohio history through creative, innovative, and effective methods and programs. There is approximately $1,500 available for McCullough Fund grants. If you are interested in submitting a McCullough Fund grant, you should note that your request should incorporate all of, if not most of, the focus areas mentioned. The process for applying and review is the same as listed for the TAP grants, including the review process as well as the grant contracts and tracking. REF Fund grants are available for Mansfield City School teachers only. Funds may be used to take students on field trips and offer programs to help engage parents in the students' education. The intent of this fund is to provide opportunities or experiences that kids wouldn't otherwise have. Similar to the REP Fund, the Mansfield Fine Arts Fund grants are available for Mansfield City School teachers only. Funds may be used to take students on field trips or facilitate programming through the Mansfield Art Center or the Renaissance. Additionally, teachers may also provide suggestions for other art-focused programming. Now that we've reviewed the grant opportunities, let's dive into some helpful grant writing tips. Please understand that we never want the grant writing process to be difficult for you or daunting. We try to make our applications as simple as possible and only ask questions that are relative to you and to our tracking purposes. So first, I would recommend that you think about it. Know what you're asking for and how much it will cost everyone involved. I like to call this the who, what, when, where, why, how, and how much section of your planning process. If you can answer all of those questions, you have a pretty good basis for starting your application. Next, you want to write it. Do a rough draft or 2 or 3. Be clear and be concise. Provide the information that's needed without adding too much extra information that will bog down your application. Don't forget to read your application and have others read it. By rereading it yourself, you may find errors or missing information. By having someone who knows the details of your program read the application, they can help highlight areas that may need simplified or may need additional information. Lastly, an outsider can help you clarify the sections that may not be understandable to someone who's not in your profession. Of course, you can always ask me to read your application before you submit it as well. We're always happy to provide clarification and help you identify areas that might need strengthened. We encourage you to use the logic model approach to grant writing. This is a key grant writing tool in the industry and is helpful for planning and evaluation. It begins with identifying a situation to improve or to solve, and then shows logical relationships between the inputs, outputs, and the outcomes. Here's a schematic of what the logic model can look like. So it starts with your situation or your problem, and then it moves to your inputs. These are going to be your resources. This can be the human, financial, and physical resources that support your grant-funded project or program. These include grant funding, cash and/or in-kind matching funds, staff and volunteer time, facilities, equipment, transportation, relationships with community partners, etc. Next are the outputs. These are the direct results of your program's implementation activities. These are concrete, quantifiable indicators of productivity. Next are your outcomes. These are the short, intermediate, and long-term benchmarks of your target population during and after the program of activities. You can also end with an impact or impact statement. So this is the change that is anticipated and the change that you saw as a result of your program. You can use the logic model to evaluate the program and begin again. So when you get all the way through, you can determine what worked, what didn't, and what can be improved if you want to continue this program moving forward. A possible example of the logic model is that perhaps you want kids to test higher in reading or on some other subject. So your inputs are going to be your people, your time, your supplies, background checks, and any other resources, including funding that you might have. The outputs are going to be the implementation of your activities. So perhaps you offer tutoring, additional classes, provide activities to your students, and encourage parents to attend meetings to learn how they can help their children. Your outcomes are going to be your benchmarks. So what are the short-term, intermediate, and long-term goals? And then report those. And of course, your impact is what actually happened. So what were the results of your inputs, your outputs, and your outcomes, and how can you use that information to either redesign the program for the future, scrap it entirely, or build upon it? Thank you for taking the time to learn more about Richland County Foundation and our education grant opportunities. I look forward to receiving your grant applications, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have further questions.